And it says, on hearing this statement of the Lord, Devahuti inquired, what kind of devotional service is worth developing and practicing to help me easily and immediately attain the service of your lotus feet? Purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. It is stated in Bhagavad Gita that no one is barred from rendering service to the Lord, whether one is a woman or a laborer or a merchant. If he engages himself in a devotional service to the Lord, he is promoted to the highest perfectional state and goes back home, back to Godhead. The devotional service most suitable for different types of devotees is determined and fixed by the mercy of the spiritual master. Okay, so the answer to Devahuti's question, what kind of devotional service is worth developing and practicing to help me easily and immediately attain the service of your lotus feet? And she's addressing Kardama Muni.
Kapila Muni.
A Kapila Muni. And the answer is that the devotional service most suitable for different types of devotees is determined and fixed by the mercy of the spiritual master. Text 29. The mystic yoga system, as you have explained, aims at the Supreme Personality of Godhead and is meant for completely ending material existence. Please let me know the nature of that yoga system. How many ways are there by which one can understand in truth that sublime yoga? Purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. There are different kinds of mystic yoga system aiming for different phases of the absolute truth. The Jnana Yoga system aims at the impersonal Brahman effulgence, and the Hatha Yoga system aims at the localized personal aspect, the Paramatma feature of the absolute truth. Whereas Bhakti Yoga, or devotional service, which is executed in 9 different ways, headed by hearing and chanting, aims at complete realization of the Supreme Lord. There are different methods of self-realization, but here Devahuti especially refers to the Bhakti Yoga system, which has already been primarily explained by the Lord. The different parts, wait a minute, let's see, I think I made a mistake here.
That's good. The different parts.
Huh?
Yeah, you ended somewhere near the different parts of Bhakti.
Yeah. I don't know why these pages stick together. So we're on Canto 3, chapter 25, verse what?
29.
29, yeah. Okay.
We're in the purport.
The different parts of the Bhakti Yoga system are hearing, chanting, remembering, offering prayers, worshiping the Lord in the temple, accepting service to Him, carrying out His orders, making friendship with Him, and ultimately surrendering everything for the service of the Lord. The word Nirvanatman, is very significant in this verse. Unless one accepts the process of devotional service, one cannot end the continuation of material existence. As far as jnanis are concerned, they are interested in jnana yoga. But even if one elevates oneself after a great performance of austerity to the Brahman effulgence, there is a chance of falling down again to the material world. Therefore, jnana yoga does not actually end material existence. Similarly, regarding the Hatha Yoga system, which aims at the localized aspect of the Lord or Paramatma, it has been experienced that many yogis, such as Vishwamrita, fall down, but bhakti yogis, once approaching the spirit, Supreme Personality of Godhead, never come back to this material world, as it is confirmed in the Bhagavad Gita. Yad Yatvanan Nivartante. Upon going, one never comes back. Tyakva Deham Punarjanma Night. After giving up this body, he never comes back again to accept a material body. Nirvana does not finish the existence of the soul. The soul is ever existing. Therefore, nirvana means to end one's material existence, and to end material existence means to go back home, back to Godhead. Sometimes it is asked how the living entity falls down from the spiritual world to the material world. Shoot, everybody asks that question. Here's the answer. Unless one is elevated to the Vaikuntha planets, directly in touch with the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he is prone to fall down, either from the impersonal Brahman realization or from an ecstatic trance of meditation. Another word in this verse, Bhagavat Vana, is very significant. Vana means arrow. The Bhakti Yoga system is just like an arrow aiming up to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The Bhakti Yoga system never urges one toward the impersonal Brahman effulgence or to the point of Paramatma realization. This Vana or arrow is so sharp and swift that it goes directly to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, penetrating the regions of impersonal Brahman and localized Paramatma. Okay, let's take a look. And this verse says, the mystic yoga system, as you have explained, aims at the Supreme Personality of Godhead and is meant for completely ending material existence. Please let me know the nature of that yoga system. How many ways are there by which one can understand in truth that sublime yoga? Okay, so this is an inquiry by Devahuti to her husband,
No, to his son.
Huh?
The son, Kapila Muni.
Oh, I'm sorry, to his son, that's right, Kapila Muni.
Yeah.
So, so therefore, there are different ways or different kinds of mystic yoga systems and aiming for different phases of the absolute truth. So you have Jnana Yoga, you have Hatha Yoga, and this yoga and that yoga. Uh, but Bhakti Yoga, or devotional service, is executed in 9 different, headed by or beginning by hearing and chanting. And it aims at complete realization of the Supreme Lord. So that's what we do every day. We hear and we chant. We hear about Krishna and we chant the glories of Krishna. So the hearing and chanting or repeating is the best way to learn. If you just study on your own, it's not as good as hearing in company of devotees and repeating in the company of devotees the Vedic knowledge. And that way, you have a better chance of remembering what you just read. Oftentimes, people read a lot of things, but they forget a lot also. But by the process of hearing and repeating what you heard, uh, gives you a better chance to remember. That's the problem of cramming or studying on the last day right before a test. You have to you have to cram, or you have to learn a lot of things in let's say staying up until 3 o'clock in the morning to take a test at 9 o'clock in the morning. And then after you finish the test, more or less you forgot everything that you learned. Okay? So you're not really experiencing that knowledge. You're just trying to temporarily uh, memorize a bunch of things. And when the test is over, a week later, you forgot everything. So that's not learning. Learning means that you actually ask questions and get answers, and you experience through real, let's say, involvement in learning. So when you go to school, you have to take tests. And if you simply study to pass the test, you don't really learn much. But when you have a real interest in what you're learning, then you do more than what is the minimum requirement. You'll and the proof that you did more than the minimal requirement is you write papers, and in these papers that you write, you research and you uh, ask questions, and you develop a real understanding of what's being talked about. You don't just cram a little bit of knowledge the night before the test. That's not really learning. You have to make a complete immersion in hearing and chanting and asking questions and getting the answers so that there are no doubts in your mind about what is the knowledge that you're learning. Uh, so the learning process is basically happens by hearing and repeating, and not simply studying the night before the test. That's not the proper way to learn. The proper way to learn is to ask questions, hear the answers, and also repeat what you heard. And this way you integrate your understanding of what's being talked about. You can't really learn something on the last day before a test where you're just reading a lot of things and trying to memorize some things and to pass the test. You're getting, Cliff's notes. You ever get Cliff's notes? They're they are summaries of things you have to know to pass a test. But that doesn't mean you're really dedicated to learning. It just means that you try and just pass it, trying just to pass the test. But when you're dedicated to learning, you really spend a lot of time, and you actually enjoy writing papers or writing uh, your realizations of what you're learning and so forth, and talking about it with friends. Now you're involved, and then asking questions from the teacher. That's very important. Now you're involved in learning. But if you just want to, get clips to notes, and try and pass the test, that's not really learning. That's uh, that's a type of artificial learning for just to pass the test, but not really to understand what is being taught. Because when you superficially try to memorize some things to pass the test, very soon after that you forget everything. So you have to be involved, and you get involved through experience. So you read something, but then you should ask questions and get answers to clear any doubts about what you just read. So that is actually, but of course, let's say you're in college and there's 500 people in your class. That often happens in the bigger colleges. It's much better to go to a small college where there's only maybe like 15 or 20 kids in your class. It's much easier to learn in that type of an atmosphere. But if you go to a big college and there's 500 people in your class, you hardly get a chance to speak to the teacher. How can he speak to 500 kids? It's not possible. And you don't get the time that you would get like in a small college. Of course, it's not an Ivy League college, but it's a small college. But oftentimes, you get a much better education in a small college than in a big college because you get a chance to talk to the teacher and discuss things that you've learned and ask questions. So whenever you want to, let's see, choose a college, best thing is to choose a small college where you have a chance to actually know the teacher, spend time with the teacher, ask questions from the teacher. And the teacher has time too, because he doesn't have, 500 kids in his class. He only has maybe 25 or 30. And therefore, it's a much but nicer atmosphere in which to study and learn. Traditionally, there was not this idea of going to a big college with 500 people in the class. If you go back farther into history, there were usually like 4 or 5 children in the class with a guru, and they were taught. And there was discussion, and they had a chance to ask questions, and they were interested also in acquiring knowledge because their teacher was very intimately engaged in teaching. But if a teacher has 500 students, how is she or he going to teach the kids? They just talk in the class. You have to take some notes, but oftentimes it's very difficult to be actually involved in the learning process. The learning process is by asking questions and discussing with the teacher, and then becoming, let's say, excited in learning. But if there's 500 kids in the class, you don't really get that experience. First of all, the teacher doesn't have time to spend a lot of time with individual students, right? So that's sort of more like what you would call a um, what's the name of that thing? It's like anyway, it's not impersonal. Let's put it like that. If you have a personal relationship with the teacher, you actually learn a lot more. If you have no real interaction with the teacher, you're just uh, uh, hearing things and taking down some notes. It's not as good as actually having give and take discussion with the teacher. Okay, so uh, all right, so we're on verse 28, right?
29. 28 and 29.
28, yeah. So on 28 it says, On hearing the statement of the Lord, Devahuti inquired, what kind of devotional service is worth developing and practicing to help me easily and immediately attain the service of your lotus feet? Very good question. You see, if you ask good questions, you get good answers. If you ask no questions, you get no answers. And if you ask silly questions, again, you don't really get an answer. But Devahuti really is asking serious questions because she wants to find out what is the absolute truth. Okay, so then in text 29, it says, the mystic yoga system, as you have explained, aims at the Supreme Personality of God and is meant for completely ending material existence. Please let me know the nature of that yoga system. How many ways are there by which one can understand in truth that sublime yoga? Now, this is a serious question by a serious student. So teachers love to have a student that's really interested in learning. And how does he or she know that the student is really interested in learning? A student asks really good questions. There are different purport. There are different kinds of mystic yoga systems aiming for different phases of the absolute truth. The Jnana Yoga system aims at the impersonal Brahman effulgence, and the Hatha Yoga system aims at the localized personal aspect, the Paramatma feature of the absolute truth. Whereas Bhakti Yoga, or devotional service, which is executed in 9 different ways, headed by hearing and chanting, aims at complete realization of the Supreme Lord. There are different methods of self-realization, but here Devahuti especially refers to the Bhakti Yoga system, which has already been primarily explained by the Lord. The different parts of the Bhakti Yoga system are hearing, chanting, remembering, offering prayers, worshiping the Lord in the temple, accepting service to Him, carrying out His orders, making friendship with Him, and ultimately surrendering everything for the service of the Lord. Okay, so now let's just stop there. It's a long purport, but let's just stop there for a minute. Any time you accept a teacher, it could be a teacher of philosophy, it could be a music teacher. There's many different types of teachers. You have many different types of things you want to learn from different people. But when you're really dedicated to learning, you will ask questions. You will go, let's say, um, you'll write papers, but they'll be not short to answer papers, but papers that in which you've actually made a lot of studying and really invested your time in learning. And the teacher can tell by the quality of your answers or the quality of the papers that you write. So here it says, um, the different parts of the Bhakti Yoga system of hearing are hearing, chanting, remembering, offering prayers, worshiping the Lord in the temple, accepting service to Him, carrying out His orders, making friendship with Him, and ultimately surrendering everything for the service of the Lord. This is a very succinct explanation of a sincere devotee. The word nirvanaman is very significant in this verse. Unless one accepts the process of devotional service, one cannot end the continuation of material existence. As far as jnanis are concerned, they are interested in jnana yoga, But even if one elevates oneself after a great performance of austerity to the Brahman effulgence, there's a chance of falling down again to the material world. Therefore, Jnana Yoga does not actually end material existence. Similarly, regarding the Hatha Yoga system, which aims at the localized aspect of the Lord or Paramatma, it has been experienced that many yogis, such as Vishwamrita, fall down. But bhakti yogis, once approaching the Supreme Personality of Godhead, never come back to this material world, as it is confirmed in the Bhagavad Gita. Yad gatva na nivartante. Upon going, one never comes back. Tyakvadeham punarjanma 90. After giving up this body, he never comes back again to accept a material body. Nirvana does not finish the existence of the soul. The soul is ever existing. Therefore, nirvana means to end one's material existence, and to end material existence means to go back home, back to Godhead. Sometimes it is asked how the living entity falls down from the spiritual world to the material world. Here is the answer. Unless one is elevated to the Vaikuntha planets, directly in touch with the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he is prone to fall down, either from the impersonal Brahman realization or from an ecstatic trance of meditation. Another word in this verse, Bhagavat Vana, is very significant. Vana means arrow. The Bhakti Yoga system is just like an arrow aiming up to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The Bhakti Yoga system never urges one towards the impersonal Brahman effulgence or to the point of Paramatma realization. This Vana, or arrow, is so sharp and swift that it goes directly to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, penetrating the regions of impersonal Brahman and localized Paramatma. Okay, so it depends on what you're aiming to be. If you're aiming to be a real devotee, then you're going to have a very high goal, and you understand what you're aiming to be, and now you work toward it with complete dedication. You're thinking about it day and night. You're writing papers. You're you're researching, and you're discussing. You're getting opinions, and you're asking questions. You really want to understand what you're trying to learn and to master it, to be able to understand all the different principles that you're studying. That's actually an exciting experience. It's not mechanical. It's being sincerely involved in trying to learn and trying to digest the teaching that's being given. Okay, so Yad Gatva Na Nivartante. If we become very serious about Krishna consciousness, we actually go back to the spiritual world and we never come back again to the material world. Tyakvadeham punarjanma naitimam. So Arjuna, after giving up this body, he never comes back again to accept the material body. Now, everybody has a material body that's covering their soul. And the body is always changing. Because it's always changing, you can understand I am not this body. That's the beginning of spiritual realization. If you identify with the body, then you basically miss the boat. the boat of spiritual knowledge that takes you back to the spiritual world. The first and foremost thing that we have to learn if we're interested in spiritual life is to learn that I am not this body. The body is just a temporary covering of the soul. I am the soul that's inside the body, but I'm not the body itself. The body, because if you say I am this body, I can ask the question, which body are you talking about? Because you had so many bodies. The body when you were 2 years old, the body when you're 8 years old, the body you have when you're 20 years old, and so forth. You cannot say I am this body. It's a false statement because the body is changing every day. There are so many cells in the body that die, and so many new cells that replace them. So basically, on a daily basis, you're changing your body. So we need to understand who we are exactly. If we say, I am this body, you make a mistake. If you say, I am the soul, and that animates this body with consciousness, that's correct. So now that soul is eternal, and it is not subject to old age, disease, and death, and so forth. It's immortal. But if we don't feed the soul, then you become very dull. Now, how do you feed the soul? You learn more and more about the existence of the soul, and you engage in soul to soul relationships, not body to body relationships. There's a big difference between soul to soul relationships and body to body relationships. So you'll learn this gradually as you become a little bit older and have more experience. There is something that is soul to soul relationship as opposed to body relationship. So when you accept a bona fide spiritual master or masters, you're not obliged just to have one spiritual master. You can have several spiritual masters and you learn from them. Now you're on a soul to soul basis. But if you're just engaged in superficial relationships with people, that is basically body to body relationships, you don't really have something tangible. It just comes and goes. The soul to soul relationship means there's a very big, let's say, investment you're making in developing that relationship and making it something that's of profound importance in your life. So the relationship between a bona fide spiritual master and a bona fide devotee is something wonderful because they're both are dedicated to uh, attaining the supreme goal of life, which is going back to Godhead. If your only purpose with the teacher is to pass a test and eventually get some kind of a diploma, there's no real relationship. It's just a temporary thing. What is real is something that is eternal and truthful. So uh, over the time, the relationship between a teacher and a student, uh, which has been going on since the beginning of time, uh, is something that is not mechanical. There's complete immersion in the relationship in order to learn and in order to have respect for the teacher. Without that respect for the teacher, and without the teacher being very serious to teach, uh, everything remains superficial. So we have to be involved in the relationship of teacher and disciple. That involvement requires, uh, uh, satisfying the demands of the teacher. And the teacher has to also have affection for the student. Uh, and therefore, the teacher wants to go further than simply the minimum in teaching the student. So all these things are based on personal relationships. If you don't have that personal relationship with the teacher, you don't learn as much. I mean, you can study books, of course, but the give and take with the teacher is the excitement of learning, where you can ask questions, you can have different projects that you're working on, and presenting what you have studied in papers, and going beyond that by uh, asking questions and discovering points that are very interesting. Now the learning process becomes one of discovery and excitement. If you're just trying to pass the test, there's no excitement in that. And it's not really learning because you probably forget everything 1 week after the test. Okay. So here it says the different parts of the Bhakti Yoga system are hearing, chanting, which means repeating, remembering, offering prayers, worshiping the Lord in the temple, accepting service to Him, carrying out His orders, making friendship with Him as a capital H, meaning it's referring to Krishna, and ultimately surrendering everything for the service of the Lord. So, how can we do this unless we have knowledge of who the Lord is? The Lord is Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So, the more we learn about who Krishna is, the more we become a really genuine disciple. And it's a ongoing relationship throughout life. You never learn everything about Krishna because Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. But because Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, there's no end to the learning. It's not that, oh, now I got a PhD, I know everything. No. Uh, the knowledge of Krishna consciousness is unending because Krishna is uh, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Therefore, you can never come to the end of knowledge with Krishna. That makes it exciting. One time I was with this Armenian priest, and because he and I used to have nice discussions, so he shared with me that he suddenly found a new interpretation of something in the Bible. So he was excited, and he came and he shared with me. He couldn't share this with everyone because they don't understand what he's talking about. But he shared it with me. And he had this new interpretation of something he read in the Bible, and was very excited by this. Now that doesn't mean what he had was bona fide, but at least he was reading the Bible with excitement and dedication, right? And even though this new, let's say, interpretation that he found might have been nonsense, but still there was excitement, and he was trying to share his excitement with me or with others. So there should be this type of excitement of discovery when you're studying and trying to learn. It's not just cramming information in your mind so that you can pass the test. There's no excitement there. But the learning process should be exciting. It should be something full of discovery, and then being able to discuss with the teacher and others, and making sure that what you have discovered is factual and not speculation. So it says here the different parts of the Bhakti Yoga system are hearing, chanting, remembering, offering prayers, worshiping the Lord in the temple, accepting service to Him, carrying out His orders, making friendship with Him, and ultimately surrendering everything for the service of the Lord. Well, the concept of surrendering is not accepted very easily in modern times. Previously, it was definitely the whole culture was based on the guru and disciple relationship, and the disciple had to be completely surrendered to the teacher, and the teacher had to be completely surrendered to Krishna. Right. So in this way, this concept of surrender is something that is not accepted by most students uh, because they think that if they surrender to someone, then they're not independent anymore. But actually, but if you surrender to the right bona fide person, you become uh, capable of controlling your mind, your senses, and you become excited in the learning process. There has to be surrender. Just like in a marriage, there has to be surrender. If there's no surrender, then you have two individuals that have maybe different points of view, and there's always going to be controversy. That's why there's so much divorce. I mean, 50% of marriages in the United States end up in divorce. Why? Because after getting married, a person realizes I made a mistake. the, the, yeah, those are the two biggest mistakes you can make: marry the wrong person and uh, accept the wrong, let's say, teacher. So you don't want to make, you don't want to, let's say, make a double mistake in your life. So, how do you know if you married the right person? Well, you have to analyze what their life is, what they're interested in, what they think, and how they think, and how they act. So that takes time to understand those things. And how to know who is a bona fide teacher? Again, you have to analyze what are they teaching, how they're teaching, and whether it's bona fide teaching or uh, uh, simply their own speculation. So some teachers believe that speculation is part of education. Uh, so then there was my daughter when she was in the UW. She organized a group of students, and they would come together, and they would have discussions. And the discussion was they would read something, and then they'd go around in a circle and say, "What do you think this means?" And then each kid would give their own interpretation of what they thought, what they were reading, or what they thought it meant. Now you don't really learn like that. Of course, you might say, well, at least they're talking about something and trying to figure it out. But having an opinion is different than knowing the truth. Everybody has opinions, right? There's millions of opinions, but knowing what the truth is different because the truth liberates you from ignorance. Opinions don't necessarily liberate you from ignorance. Uh, because everybody has an opinion and it's based on their own experiences in life and basically their speculations. So when you're in a atmosphere of, well, everybody has an opinion and everybody's speculation is valid. No, that's not true. And this is why it's difficult for modern kids to study or to learn, because they don't like to be told what the truth is. They like to find out themselves. So that's like trying to reinvent the wheel in every generation. The wheel was already invented a long time ago. You don't have to reinvent the wheel in every generation. And so this type of, reinventing things that have already been invented and proven is basically a waste of time. So our ancestors obviously have left, documents of their realization. Yeah.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, some people say, or at least modern education is like, you have to find out the truth for yourself. If you don't find like for yourself, you're not going to believe in it or you cannot follow. A lot of people, at least in my close circles, also say it.
I have to do it on my own.
Yeah, because else, if I don't find the truth by myself,
it's like more like a robot. You're just
or else I cannot believe in it and I cannot follow.
So there is a difference between what finding your truth versus asking or having the intent to know the truth. Right? I mean, even our Shastras ask for like, Adhato Brahma Jigyasa. So the curiosity to know the truth should be there. From otherwise, you are told and you will not probably never stick to you. The curiosity should be there, but asking the right source is key, right, Maharaj? So, because I think the difference is like them thinking that they'll manufacture their own truth. That's where it led to. Instead of developing the curiosity and asking, finding in a bona fide way, they're like, find the truth for yourself, which made it like everybody's truth is different.
Or is a medium ground? You know the truth, to find out whether that is it. Are you able to come to the truth? Learn the truth, hear the truth,
Yeah,
and experience
and
the
then
truth.
yeah.
You see, there are many opinions.
The same one. So when you believe that
You can go around the room, everybody's got an opinion. That's why, basically, traditionally, there's a spiritual master and there's a student. And both have to be qualified. The student also has to be qualified. What is a qualified student? A qualified student following the regulative principle. That doesn't happen outside Krishna consciousness. You have all kinds of kids that are engaged in all kinds of sense gratification, and they're trying to study and learn something, but they really don't learn. They just kind of pass tests, And for example, you can have people that are PhDs, and you think that they're really educated. Well, they know some things, but you find out that they are really low class people, molesting their own students or having a dark side to them, and maybe they're alcoholics, or it's strange. But I remember when I was in University of Pennsylvania, I had a teacher, and he was a very popular teacher. But it turned out that he was grooming some of his students to molest them. That was like, a shock to me, but he was like a more or less a popular teacher. The kids would like to be in his class, but he turned out to be a molester. You know, So this is shocking. This is like, complete violation of trust, because you accept a teacher and you expect this person to really be upstanding in all their morality and so forth. And then if you find out that the teacher is a molester, it's like a terrible shock. So uh, learning is not simply going to school and studying and passing tests. Uh, Learning means that you uh, choose the right subject. What's the right subject? The right subject is to learn who God is and what your relationship with God is. From that point on, you'll know who you want to associate with and who you don't want to associate with. If you don't learn that, then you can end up associating with all kinds of nonsense people, because you have not learned what is the criterion of a real teacher. A real teacher has to have impeccable qualities and be a devotee, be someone at least that believes in God. Now, most of the teachers that kids have nowadays, most of them are atheists. They don't actually believe in God. And if they do believe in God, they have their own speculative understanding of who God is. So this is a very, let's say, dangerous system that we have. You go to a person who can have a very dark life. They don't manifest it in class, but after class, they can manifest their dark side. And so the qualifications of a teacher have to be uh, understood before you accept someone as a teacher. And secondly, the qualification of disciple also has to be studied and make sure that the qualification meets the standard for actually learning. There are a lot of kids that go to school, they don't really want to learn anything. They just are forced to go to school, and uh, and you have dropouts also. They realize, look, I don't really want to go to school, and I don't want to do this, I don't want to do that. So they just drop out. There are a lot of dropouts nowadays. Whereas before, it wasn't so many, but now a lot of kids just drop out, and because they don't want to learn. Now, some of those kids uh, learn on their own through experience and reading a lot of books. Now, reading a lot of books doesn't really educate you. It gives you a lot of information, but it doesn't mean you're actually educated. So, what does it mean to be actually educated? It means that you know who God is and you know how to serve God and please God. That means you're educated. If you don't really know who God is, or you don't have any faith in God, but you're just studying a lot of information and you become an expert in some field, that doesn't mean that you are actually educated. Learning mundane knowledge is not real education. Learning spiritual knowledge is education, because this way you prepare yourself to go back to Godhead. Just knowing a lot of knowledge, but no, not really preparing yourself to go back to Godhead, you're just going to eat, sleep, mate, defend, and die, and then to take birth again, and who knows what the next body is going to be. So these are serious questions. Is this person actually a teacher? Or is it just someone who has knowledge in some specialty and is not really understanding how to become free from the cycle of birth and death, right? So does that mean that, let's say somebody wants to be an engineer, so they get into a class, engineering class, where you have a real engineer in the class, and you learn a lot of things, and you're trying to become an engineer. But even though you might become a successful engineer, that didn't solve the problem of life. It's only a way to make money or have a career and make money and have a nice car, have a nice house, etc. It doesn't mean that you're really educated. And real education is when you can control your mind and your senses and focus them on Krishna. That's real education. Simply learning how to be an engineer or certainly, becoming an IT person. A lot of IT people have a lot of bad habits, right? Like, Elon Musk, like, how many kids does he have? Like,
Oh,
10,
10 or 12.
10 or 12 with how many women?
Yeah. Kind of.
Yeah. So basically, he's a low class person. Although people, think that he's a genius, and maybe he's a genius in IT or whatever, but actually, he's a low class person. And his opinion doesn't really mean anything because he is a sense gratifier. So to recognize who's a real teacher or who is really successful, it's elusive because somebody may be very good at controlling other people. That's what a CEO is. He has to be able to control people. And by controlling people, he can get them to work really hard. And actually, the only person that's really successful in that type of relationship is the controller. So he becomes he exploits his disciples or whatever, and but he gets the most let's say benefit. The real teacher wants to make the disciple as good or better than himself. Right? That's the real teacher. And the false teachers, they exploit their disciples for their own benefit. And this happens a lot in life. So the real teacher is someone who does not have a selfish motive. The real teacher's motive is to really educate the student or the disciple and to educate the disciple so that the disciple becomes even better than the teacher, right? So it's difficult to find teachers like that because they just do the minimum and get their salary and that's it. They're not, let's say, completely dedicated to educating. Complete education means you become equal or greater than the teacher, right? And that makes the teacher happy. Right? Well, it depends on what the subject is. The subject should be attaining genuine spiritual knowledge by which you can free yourself from the cycle of birth and death. Now you are actually educated properly. But that's not even thought about today by the teachers. They teach you some math or they teach you some subjects, and that's it. Doesn't mean that it has really improved your spiritual life. It's something that's mundane. Anything that's mundane is temporary. Anything that's real teaching is eternal. So there's sat and asat. Devotees are always concerned with what is sat, the truth, and which is eternal. And people who just want to make a living, they're only interested in asat, something that's of temporary benefit, but not spiritual or not eternal benefit. So real education is how to free yourself from the cycle of birth and death. That's real education. And all the other education, so-called education, is simply how to make money and have, food on the table, basically. Animals, therefore, are educated. They know how to put food on the table. They catch it or they kill it and they eat it. Huh? Yeah. So animals also are have intelligence, but it's basically to put food on the table. And people have, there are some people, or a lot of people like that, they're only concerned about putting food on the table, and that's it. Eating, sleeping, mating, and defending. They're not interested in anything else. So before you give your child to a teacher, you have to analyze the qualifications of that teacher, and then also you have to make sure that your child has the right qualification to be a student. Is this happening today? Not really. It's all haphazard. There's no real thoughts about training the child to be a good student, or examining the teacher to make sure he's actually a bona fide teacher. Now, how do we come to the point where everyone is bona fide? Well, you have to first of all understand your relationship with God. Many teachers today are atheists, and they're proud to say so. So even though they might be an expert in some kind of mundane knowledge, it doesn't mean that they're a teacher. A real teacher is concerned about how to elevate one to spiritual level by which they can become liberated from the cycle of birth and death. And somebody will say, look, you're going too far. You just want to learn math, or you just want to learn sociology, or you just want to, but that's not really true. The real purpose of knowledge is to liberate yourself from the cycle of birth and death. That's real knowledge. That's something that's eternal. Everything else that is just pointing toward temporary little successes in life is not real knowledge. It's just a way to make a living or whatever. So is it important to make a living? Oh, yeah. But you can make a living. You can have enough knowledge to make a living. It doesn't mean you're happy. It doesn't mean you're a success. So the first thing that we should learn is what is actually success. And I was always telling my kids, like, it doesn't matter if you're number one in your class, or you're, more intelligent than others. What really matters is if you have love and devotion for Krishna, and you're honest, and you don't hurt anyone, you don't hurt yourself also, and therefore you don't have to be rich. You have to be rather an honest, good person, right? Who actually believes in God or Krishna, and actually engages in devotional service. So that's success. But that's not being taught to most children. You know? The concept of success is someone like Elon Musk, but he's a very low class person. He might be a genius in how to make money, how to invent things, and so forth. But that doesn't mean he's a good person, right? So, and it also means, however, that he can manipulate people, and he can dominate people. That's how he can get so many people working for him, and he becomes richer and richer. And they might be making more money also, but basically he's exploiting them. He knows how to control people. So that's not really education. Real education is what Prabhupada is teaching us, Krishna consciousness. So we have to realize there is genuine education, and there is this manipulative education, where one person controls a lot of other people and teaches them how to make a living by surrendering to this boss. No. So, and that's a good word, success. What does it mean to have a successful life? That should be discussed. And you can go around, and say, okay, everybody has a chance now. Explain what you think is success, right? And then this is what Socrates used to do. He used to ask questions. What do you think is the truth? Someone said, well, I think the truth is this or that. And then Socrates would say, okay, well, let's discuss this a little more.
The Socratic method.
Yeah, and then he would ask them questions and they would give answers. And then he would question the answers. They would discuss more and more. And eventually they would come to some conclusions, over time. But what's very, let's say, wonderful today is that we have Srila Prabhupada and his purports. Prabhupada said in his purports, just like, we have this Srimad Bhagavatam we're reading now. So we're not just reading the verses, we're reading the purports also. And Prabhupada said the purports are his
Spiritual
ecstasy. So when we're reading the purport, we're reading the spiritual ecstasies of Srila Prabhupada. So, although otherwise you could just read the verses and then you could speculate what it means. But when you're reading Prabhupada's spiritual ecstasies, now you get the real meaning of what's being said in the verse. Okay, so are there any questions? Yes.
Maharaj,
Yeah.
if somebody is reading Prabhupada's purpose,
Yes.
They might be coming to their own understanding. How do we know that they are reaching the right understanding?
Well, because they come to the same conclusion as Arjuna. After hearing Bhagavad Gita, Arjuna became a pure devotee. So if you come to the same conclusion as Arjuna after being educated by somebody or reading a book or something, then you know you're on the right track. And if you're not if you don't come to the same conclusions as Arjuna, what was Arjuna's conclusion? That he was not going to get anywhere by just having a discussion. He had to surrender himself to the bona fide guru. And then here ask questions to the guru. So when he realized that he was getting nowhere by having discussion with the guru, he surrendered himself and then asked questions and listened to the answers. Now they were not just having discussion. They were now it became a real give and take situation. So he was giving questions, serious questions, and he was taking the answers from a bona fide guru. Simply getting opinions is more or less a waste of time. Everybody has it. But getting the right answers from the right person and asking the right questions, now it's substantive, something that can be a life education. So we should seek that. That was basically what was happening in ancient times. That there weren't, classrooms with 500 students. How can you educate 500 students? Yeah, you can make them have tests and things like that, but you don't really get educated like that. The education is a personal thing between guru and disciple, and it's not meant to have 500 kids in class. It's meant to have 3 or 4. It's enough, and you have a chance to actually learn. That's why it's always better not to go to a big university. It's better to go to a small, let's say, college. You have a better chance of having close relationships with the teachers. Small colleges. And oftentimes you'll find that the teachers in small colleges, they take the time to actually educate the student. Right? So when you're trying to figure out which school to go to, my advice would be to go to a small college where you have a chance to associate with the teacher. Yeah.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, if you don't have access to of the colleges that are around you are only taking a large number of kids, and maybe there are some colleges which are taking fewer kids, but it's very far or very expensive, then what do you do in that case?
Well,
That is ideal, but
okay, now we're talking about mundane knowledge, right?
yes, yes, yes. Because you're going to college.
Yeah, well, you said it's better to go to a small college, right? The classes are smaller, and and oftentimes there are very good teachers in small colleges. You know, uh, I remember when I chose to go to a small college, I got a much better education. The teacher could spend time, and there was like personal relationship. You could ask questions, and he or she was always ready to give extra time for you. If you were asking questions, they would take the time because they don't have 500 kids in the classroom. Yes.
That, like long ago, they had very few people in classes, now like 500 kids. So in the Hanuman Chalisa it says that the Hanuman went to Surya Dev to get educated, right? Surya Dev had like 6 million students. So how would did Hanuman like interact with Surya Dev that much?
How do you know Surya Dev had
It said in the Vedic school. Vedic book. When we had the Hanuman Chalisa as our book. So they were reading the Hanuman Chalisa verses and then the stories along with them. And then this was one of the stories. So you were saying normally there were only like very few sports students maybe. But
well, let's look at Arjuna. Arjuna is being educated by Krishna.
One student.
One student, one spiritual master, right? So that's what we should look at, not whatever you learned in the Hanuman Chalisa.
And also, I don't know if all the 6 million were at the same time. Like even in Bhagavad Gita, sun god Vivaswan spoke to Manu, and then so it came. It wasn't like 6 million students.
because while they were telling the story in Vedic class, they said that they had like around 6 million students, and the teacher told me to memorize that number. So
6 million students in one class.
yeah, while he was driving around the whole world, they said
Oh,
that
where did you learn this?
Vedic school.
By whom? Who shared it?
It could be some material that they are
Yeah,
teaching. We can use.
Yeah, we'll have to research that.
It's the Hanuman Chalisa book in the
maybe it's
temple.
written in the book somewhere.
Yeah.
Wait a minute. Do we teach Hanuman Chalisa?
Yeah.
We are teaching
Really?
part of the curriculum that we purchased.
Uh-huh.
We purchased a curriculum from Harivilas.
Interesting.
And also it's 6 million students, and then Hanuman couldn't find a seat, so he just flew next to Surya there and listened.
Well, I don't think that really helps you very much to learn that because
That may be why only we're talking about Hanuman, because not the other 6 million students. Because Hanuman went very close to Surya. So there are also some questions online also whenever we're done with.
Now?
Yeah, there are some
Okay. Well, anyway, in this all right, so you're being taught the Hanuman Chalisa, is that right? Now we can ask a question. Did Prabhupada teach Hanuman Chalisa? No, he didn't.
They're doing it for third and fourth grade curriculum.
I know, but the question is, did Prabhupada teach us Hanuman Chalisa? So therefore, that's a serious question. We should ask the teacher. Did Prabhupada teach you Hanuman Chalisa when you were studying Krishna consciousness? You know, so somebody's making a let's say a new entry into what should be taught to kids, and that should be analyzed and see if it's right or wrong. I don't remember Prabhupada ever teaching us Hanuman Chalisa. I mean, I learned about it on my own, but Prabhupada never spoke about Hanuman Chalisa. Prabhupada was always talking about Krishna and how to chant Hare Krishna and how to learn about the different pastimes of Krishna. He was not interested in Hanuman Chalisa at all. So we should ask this question: where did this information become part of education for our young kids? Yeah.
So, shall I open up for?
Yeah.
Yes, Prabhu. Big Prabhu, I think you can unmute.
Yeah, yes, Maharaj. So it's this just a change of topic. My question is about Elon Musk. So it is true that, I mean, his personal, like you have mentioned several times, that is, personal characteristics or behavior might be not less than ideal. But how do we balance that? Like, if he is supporting, let's say, causes or political causes that are in alignment with our values, like, conservative values around, other things like abortion or, things like that, he is supporting some causes, political causes, which are, let's say, in alignment with our values. So is there something to be said for, how we balance our opinion regarding him? Because, on a personal level, we are not associating with him, but we don't have to, like, really bother ourselves with, how he conducts himself, except for knowing that it's not, let's say, ideal. But he is publicly now supporting causes which are in alignment with our values. So how do we balance that?
You balance it by not learning from him. You learn from Prabhupada.
Yes, of course. Yeah, that's right.
We don't really need education from Elon Musk. We should be educated by Prabhupada and the Vaishnava Acharyas. He's not an Acharya. So why even go there? If you want to know about spiritual life, you don't go to Elon Musk. Just because, he makes good cars, or he says, oh, from now on, I'm not going to, engage in this thing or that thing. And it looks like he's becoming more spiritually involved or whatever. Why go to the person who just recently discovered that a lot of things that he did and said before were wrong? Why don't we go to where the actual truth is? That's always been right. That's always been proven in history and has survived millions of years as the truth. So we don't need someone who has just recently discovered some truth. Yeah. And even that, whatever they discovered, is incomplete. We go to something that's time tested by the acharyas. So our heroes should be acharyas, not Elon Musk.
Yeah, and just to add to the point that he doesn't speak about God, right? I mean, he's talking about some values which align with, probably, because those are political choices that somebody has to make.
Right.
Get the point.
Yeah, right. But we do say in this, Maharaj also says, like, his views around like abortion and all that. And I think now he is supporting publicly with money, with his time, causes that are, or political causes that are in alignment with, like banning abortion and things like that. So that's what I'm saying. Like, how do we, we cannot just see him as a black and white figure. He is actually doing certain things which are helping our cause too, right? So anyway, that's all. I just thank you, Maharaj.
Well, look, take the best and leave the rest.
Yeah.
That's our motto. Take the best and leave the rest. The best is Prabhupada and the Vaishnava Acharyas. So I don't see Elon Musk in the list of Vaishnava
No,
Acharyas.
this is important, Maharaj, because before coming to Krishna consciousness, because we were always exposed to only the news, tech news, and everything. Everybody used to adore the billionaires.
Yeah.
Right? Everybody, because that's the definition of success.
Yes.
And going back to the definition of success, so people would admire them. I mean, even now on Twitter, if you see, like, millions follow, let's say, Elon Musk, and majority of them are like adore him, which means that they're considering him as the master. So whatever he does, they'll follow. If he says like lithium refinery is the next thing, then that's the next thing that they'll do, or like, this technology, that technology. So whatever his opinions, they become their opinions. That's what you're highlighting, is that, let's stick to our Acharya Parampara, know the actual truth, not be and particularly for young kids, that's very important, right? Because you will hear a lot about all these people.
Some people might misunderstand that when you say take the best, leave the rest. People try to take the best from Aramhat and leave the rest. But I think you've made very clear that when you say take the best, leave the rest, you have to see the best of everything.
Well, the best is the Vaishnava Acharyas. Why? Because their knowledge is already been tested and validated. Right? Elon Musk's knowledge, and by the way, he changes his opinions so much. But that means he doesn't really know what the truth is. The truth has never changed. It's the gold standard. Let's put it like that. Elon Musk is, fool's gold. Changes his opinion all the time.
The opinions change. Truth never changes.
Yeah, exactly. So take the best and leave the rest.
Surendra Prabhu also has one more question.
Yeah.
So, Hare Krishna Maharaj, I have some couple of questions, sir.
Yes.
Yeah, so the last line of today's purport says, like, the soul is ever existing. Therefore, nirvana means to end one's material existence, and to end material existence means to go back home, back to Godhead. So, my question is about how one can end his material existence. I want to be very contextual here. So, let us say we take a student, right? His dharma is to study, let us say. So how can he end his material existence in this process?
By studying the correct source of knowledge, not the false source of knowledge. The
Right?
correct source of knowledge.
We're all living in the world. I mean, our kids are going to schools, right? And let us say somebody is becoming a doctor or engineer, right? What would be our advice to end their material existence when they are pursuing that profession?
Well, look, you have to always look at, it's called eschatology. Look that word up, eschatology. Very important word. Eschatology means what is the final truth. So the final truth, if I become a PhD doctor, will that liberate me from the cycle of birth and death? Answer, no. So it's only a job type of expertise to make money and to have food on the table. Somebody does that by selling newspapers. Another person does it by becoming a PhD. But it's just a job. It's just to put food on the table. It doesn't mean that you become a pure devotee because you're Elon Musk and you have millions and billions of dollars. That doesn't mean he's successful. He's also going to be subject to birth, death, old age, and disease. So what is he doing about that? Well, not much. You can't buy your way into the spiritual world. Okay,
No,
so what's that? What does it say? Eschatology. What does it say?
Yeah, eschatology, derived from the Greek word eschatos, meaning last or end, is the field of theology and philosophy that studies the ultimate destiny of humanity.
Right. The ultimate destiny of humanity. Perfect.
It is particularly concerned with the events like the end of the world, divine judgment, and the final resolution of good and evil.
So is Elon Musk teaching that? I don't think so. He's talking about the immediate, uh, you know, uh, immediate way of making more money, but he's not talking about eschatology, the final thing by which you can liberate yourself from birth and death. Yeah. Okay, you had something else to say, Prabhu?
Yes, Maharaj. Like I think so. I just want to focus on like somebody doing some task. So let us say I'm a husband or a father. In the context of that right circumstances, how do I end my material existence and enter into a spiritual realm?
You take up Krishna consciousness in your family. You
Right?
teach your you teach your family to chant Hare Krishna. You teach them to follow the regulative principles. You teach them who is Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. You take them to India, to places of pilgrimage where Krishna had his pastimes or Rama had his pastimes. Uh, you educate them in spiritual knowledge, not material knowledge. They'll get material knowledge in the schools, but your responsibility to your children is to give them spiritual knowledge, right? And to show them that the material knowledge they're getting is very incomplete. It's not enough to liberate them. They can be A students and still not be liberated from the cycle of birth and death. So you have to teach the real knowledge to your kids. They're not going to get the real knowledge in school. The purpose of the schools is not to teach you how to get free from birth and death. It's so that you can make money, right? Get a job and make money.
No,
Uh,
I understand, Maharaj. Like I attended your classes many times, and I mean we discussed this. So I wanted to understand, given one context that I do, like everyday task, right? How do I spiritualize? How do I spiritualize that task?
Offer the result to Krishna.
Right.
So,
So when I offered, for example, I was doing dishwashing service. Like I was inspired by the way you have done, and where I found myself like So when I do dishwashing at my home, like sometimes I like, sometimes I don't like. Right. I was lazy sometimes. Right. But I gradually trying to practice and see like last 1 week. Right. No matter what it is, I was doing. I need to keep my home clean, and I was just doing. Right. So in that process I feel in my mind that my whole system, like as a human being, I was kind of liberated from whatever suffering I have towards like cleaning dishes.
okay. Are you
Right.
still cleaning dishes?
Yeah.
Oh, that's good.
Right. So what I observed in my mind, like some part of my mind was stop complaining. Right. I stuck to the
Yes.
process. So that inspiration came from you only. Like whenever I do something, I try to see the benefit. Like offer, like not the result. What instead of asking what is in that in for me, just do it for the sake of goodness of the task. Right. Offer the result to
Okay,
the
wait a minute. Just stop right there. If what you're doing is to please Krishna, then it is meaningful. If it's simply to perform the task, let's say properly, Krishna is not in the picture. Everything should have some reference to Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. That's the difference between a devotee and someone who's just, let's say, has expertise. The devotee will always focus his activities to please Krishna.
So in the context of family circumstances, what does it mean to please Krishna? Like let us say I'm doing a dishwashing, right? So what does it mean to please Krishna there?
Okay, now 1 second. Let's ask a question. Why did you decide to wash dishes in the temple?
Why? I mean, I thought it is a process of service to the community. And I mean, of course, like somebody gave
No,
that service to me.
basically you saw me washing dishes in the temple. Is
No,
that right or wrong?
somebody posted. I didn't see you directly, but somebody posted in the pot washing WhatsApp channel, and I see, how much with the dedication and devotion you did that work process. That how I did it, and I felt humiliated. I mean, humility a little bit, and said like, hey, I have a lot of room to grow here, right?
Okay. Well, washing dishes is a great, let's say, privilege. Washing Krishna's dishes is a great privilege because it's called devotional service. It's
Yeah.
not just washing dishes, right? So when
No, I
you
agree.
realize,
So I used to clean, the altar dishes and everything for my grandfather to help him, do the prayer in the home when I was a kid. So
Yeah.
I totally understand.
Okay. So once you understand the goal, you therefore understand the value of doing the service. What is the ultimate goal? The ultimate goal should be to please Krishna and Guru. Now, if you achieve that goal by washing dishes on a regular basis in the temple, you're not just engaging in a mundane activity, it's actually a spiritual activity. Because, you can go to a restaurant and there's people washing dishes also. When they're not washing dishes to please the deities, they're washing dishes to make a living. So you're washing dishes in the temple to please Krishna, right? And Guru and the sadhu and Guru. So there's a big difference between washing dishes in a temple and washing dishes in a company or in a shop. So the dishwashing is actually a glorious dishwashing. Krishna's dishes is a glorious activity, and just washing dishes in a restaurant, well, it's just to make money. So you see, there's a big difference between the
Yeah,
two.
I understand, Maharaj, but we're all in the Grihastha ashram, like so we have to like we eat and we cook, and somebody need to wash the dishes. Like, how do we spiritualize that task at home?
At home.
Yeah, dishwashing at home.
But if you're
For
preparing,
example, my kids, complain quite a bit of times. Like, I've been trying for years, and sometimes they do, sometimes they don't do. Between wife and husband, there are sometimes we put on each other, right? Somebody has to clean up, like the way we clean up at temple.
No, the principle is that you should follow the guru. So if the guru washes dishes, you should also wash dishes.
That's exactly I'm trying to emulate you, Maharaj. Like whatever so you did, like I got the inspiration from that. Like hey, Maharaj has done like with any like the way you have done that. That's the perfection, the excellence. And I felt like I'm not anywhere there. Like I was always complaining. Sometimes I feel there's so much whatever like pain in my hands or so. So that's my realization. Okay, there is something that I'm lacking or I'm not doing right.
Well, let me ask you a question. Do you actually enjoy washing dishes in the temple?
Now I don't have much friction. I'm honestly like the some days I have friction, but I can see where the friction is coming.
Did you say friction?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that's in other words, you do it hesitatingly, not with full vigor and enthusiasm.
So
Is that
that
what
is
you?
gradually growing. That enthusiasm towards the task is gradually growing. I'm not a perfect person, right? I mean, I have years of whatever karma, or so that takes time uh, to go away.
Okay. Well, I'll give you an example of a devotee. What's his name? Now, there was this one devotee,
Jayana?
Jayananda, yeah.
Oh.
Jayananda would always do what most devotees did not want to do. Take out the trash and wash the dishes and basically all types of service that would be considered below the let's say the pay, what do you call it?
Pay grade.
Pay grade.
Regular.
Yeah. And Prabhupada loved him. He really loved Jayananda because he recognized that Jayananda was completely surrendered to Krishna and to Prabhupada. And he would do everything that most other devotees did not want to do. So there's nothing, let's say, less about washing the dishes because they're Krishna's dishes. And
Yeah, I
that's-
totally understand, Maharaj. I just took one context, one task. I mean, there are many tasks that we do at home, at temple, right? And once we understand, like, so why we don't like or why we like certain things in one task, it just we behave the similar way in other areas of our life, right? So I just took one example, right? I mean to say I have a few other areas, but my mind behaves same way. So,
what is the same? Wait a minute. What is the same way? What are you talking about? Same
so
way.
same way means like sometimes it complains, sometimes it is like doesn't want to do it, sometimes procrastinate.
Okay, well, we all have those tendencies, but when we overcome those tendencies, then when you see that what you're doing is actually serving Krishna, those doubts in your mind go away. If you don't see the connection to Krishna, then you ask all these questions.
Yeah, I'm totally with you, Maharaj. How do we see that at home? Like, how do you help kids to see that? Like, for example, I'm keeping their room clean, right? Keeping helping in the kitchen, right? How do you make kids understand that this is a service to Krishna?
Well, there's a principle. It says, monkey see, monkey do. So if your kids see that you wash the dishes, and but if if you're watching television, you tell your kid, go wash the dishes, and he's not going to be excited about washing the dishes. But if you say, okay, come on and help me, we'll both wash the dishes. So now you're doing something together. This is one place, the together what is it? The together
Center.
center. Yeah. You want your house to be a together center. Right. It's not that you watch television and you tell your kid to wash the dishes. When everything is together, then your kids learn. No. So that's what we should do. We should always engage our kids to do what we are doing. That way they learn. Traditionally, it was like this. Previous times, a child is born in a shoemaker's, house where the father is a shoemaker. So the father would teach the child, how to be a shoemaker, right? And this whole IT thing it's completely thrown away the whole transition from one generation to another, you see. And everybody wants to be an IT person nowadays, But previously, the children would learn the uh, the uh, uh, the culture of the father and mother. So that's only when the father and mother engage the children in their activities. Now, it might be washing dishes. It might be, having a store, and working in the store. I mean, I always used to work in my family store. You know, after school, I'd go and work in the store, and that went on for most of my youth. I was always helping my family in the store, and I learned things from that. But the main thing is a family that prays together stays together. So you don't only pray in the temple; you should pray at home, and the home should have the same atmosphere and culture as in the temple. That's that's the way to educate. It's not that you do one thing in the home, like for example, everybody eats at a different time. That's very bad. Not good. You should have that family table where everybody sits down together and you pray first and then you eat the prashad. If you just sit down and eat, that's not a good, and everybody's eating at different times. It's not a good, let's say, model. We have to model ourselves according to the temple principle. The temple principle is everybody sits down together and they eat, and on some serve and some eat, and then the servers also eat after that. But there's got to be a model that is somehow or other connected to Krishna. If it's simply everybody eats at different times, everybody doesn't have time to sit down together, discuss, what you did during the day and what your spiritual plans are, then everything breaks down. The mundane life.
So even within Krishna consciousness, the word Krishna consciousness, we forget over time. And it becomes somewhat like we're doing routinely. Somehow that's why the prayer is the one that brings us back to that consciousness. Because otherwise it will just be like, how do I do what I do a little bit better? So it becomes a self-improvement without Krishna in the picture.
Good point.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that prayer before taking prasadam in the group, in the family, in the seminal group, the family, sitting together, praying together, and then taking prasadam together. It's very important. If everybody eats at different times and you don't have that seminal family, connection, everything breaks down. The culture is actually taught by mutual activities. You don't teach culture by everybody having a different schedule, So you have to organize the life in the house like the organization in the temple. Everybody sits down together and takes prashad. Everybody worships the deity together. That togetherness is the wholesome way to do things. If everybody has different schedules, eating at different times, it's not good. They end up associating more with materialists than with devotees. But if you have that family dinner, it could be a breakfast, it could be a lunch, it could be dinner together as a family, then there is this family cohesion, this based on offering the food first to Krishna and then respecting the food as prasadam. Yeah.
Thank you so much. And what you're saying is, if you wash your dishes at home, this is what I understood from your answer. Washing dishes at home, since you're offering all the dishes you're using to make prasadam for Krishna, and then you're eating, so they become Krishna dishes. So when you're washing these dishes at home, you are washing Krishna dishes because you made prasadam with those, and that's how you spiritualize that up.
Yeah.
Otherwise,
Well,
it becomes a
that's how you're conscious.
Yeah.
That this is actually, it's not a mundane thing, like washing the dishes at home, because the food was offered to Krishna.
Correct.
If it's not offered to Krishna, then it's a mundane. and nobody wants to wash the dishes. So you hire a maid.
So Maharaj, the follow-up question is like once material existence, right? Ending material existence. Does it happen gradually? Does it happen one time? So when it happens,
Everything happens gradually.
yeah,
A plant doesn't happen overnight.
I see.
Everything happens gradually in nature. So your desire to serve Krishna integrally in everything you do is going to happen gradually. It's a learned culture. But because it's a learned culture, it's exciting because you're always going to be learning something new, a new way of washing the dishes, right? So, okay, so you buy a dishwasher, but even that requires work, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes it's more work than putting everything in the washing machine. Because then you have to put everything in the washing machine. Then you have to take everything out of the washing machine, right? Whereas if you just wash the dishes after you eat, now there's nothing to put in and take out again. So that should be the culture. You should wash your own dishes.
Interestingly, we almost wash it so clean and then we put it into the dishwasher.
Otherwise, dishwasher will give you the dirty finish. You have to rinse nicely, then put it in.
Yeah, well,
It works.
but if the rule is that everybody eats, they have to wash their own dishes.
I saw Maharaj in Vrindavan.
It's not that you put everything into the kitchen and sink and walk away. That's not. And then the poor mother or somebody has to wash it.
I saw Maharaj in Vrindavan where they feed like 10,000 people. So they are using 3 plates.
Yeah.
And whoever picks their plate,
you
wash, put it back in the stack. Another person, they pick their fresh plate, they eat. Wash it, put it back. So 10,000 people eating and no one is washing it.
Yeah, it's everyone is stacked up.
Everyone is washing dishes.
Again, it's hard to get family to do. See, all these things are, monkeys see, monkey do. You see, so the monkeys should also wash their dishes, right? So the kids will also learn. You have to wash. Well, dad is doing it, mom is doing it. I should also do it. If you leave all the dishes for mommy or daddy, that's not the culture. It just gives the kid a chance to go into his room and play on the computer some more. So everything should be done as a family.
Maharaj, one more question on that. Like, how do we know that we are operating at a spiritual plane, not on the material existence?
You feel happy. You feel satisfied.
If you are satisfied with washing dishes, how I am doing, and I'm not having any
You're
resistance.
doing it for Krishna.
Yeah.
If you're doing it for your family, you might become discouraged. If you're doing it for Krishna, then you'll do it happily. You'll be, more excited because
So
you're
wherever
doing
we do that, whether it is a home or temple, that if you are doing it for, think that in your mind you're doing it for Krishna, you're saying that you will be happy.
That's right.
Yes.
That's the secret.
You have to believe
Because you're doing devotional service. You're not just washing dishes. It's the same as worshiping the deity. Washing the dishes of the deity is the same as worshiping the deity. If you don't see the connection to the deity or Krishna, then it's just mundane work.
Mm.
But if you see the condition, the connection to Krishna, because you don't. If nobody washes the dishes, how are the cooks going to cook for the deities?
Yeah.
So whenever you see a big pile of dishes that are not washed, you should immediately go and engage in devotional service for the deity, because all those dishes or all the pots are going to be used very soon to cook for the deity. So you're directly worshiping the deity by washing the dishes.
It's almost like the analogy that I think about is like electricity. Krishna is the primary source of energy, but if our consciousness, whatever we do, if we see Krishna connection,
Yeah.
then the same electricity passes through, and then it doesn't matter whether you're holding a small wire or a big, a 440 volts. It's the same. You get the same reaction.
We have the same connection.
Yeah. So that spiritualizes.
Yeah.
So
There's
does
no
this mean
duality.
that when kids are studying, like they're I mean they do learn some skills or some doing. So should they do it as service to Krishna? And when we do adults work at whatever profession they are, like should they do it as service to Krishna?
Well, if it's something that you can offer to Krishna, it becomes tangible. If it's just theoretical, well, yeah, I mean, I smoked this cigarette for Krishna. No, that's not tangible. It's not real, right? You can only do things they're offerable to Krishna. So just because, see, if the family works together cooperatively, like after dinner, you all work together to wash the dishes. Before dinner, you all work together to cook the food. See? So now you're in the context of working together as a family. It's not that the wife has to do all those things. She's getting help from her kids and from her husband. Now you're working together, and that builds up a lot of connection. So everything should be done as a family. You shouldn't, say, well, that my wife could do all that. I don't do that stuff.
I think this question is also like at work, which right now we see that as like that's work, and that's not Krishna service. How do you dovetail
How
that?
do you know it's not Krishna service? I mean, it becomes Krishna service if you take the result of the work, the money, and use it in Krishna service. You see, and so you're not directly working for Krishna, but the result of your work is going to Krishna.
Correct.
So there's nothing, either you directly work for Krishna or you give the result of your work to Krishna. It comes to the same thing. You're serving Krishna. But, if you don't give the result of your work to Krishna, then it's not Krishna conscious. You're just earning money and spending it for your own selfish purposes. But you always have to keep some part of your, money to serving Krishna. You can serve Krishna by engaging in devotional service. You can serve Krishna by donating part of your income to Krishna. You can do
Maharaj,
both.
one more last question, Maharaj. So I think
Yeah.
I'm taking a lot of time here. So,
That's right.
so when does one's material existence starts? Does it start as soon as the baby took birth into the world, or is it starts before that?
Well, there is prenatal consciousness. We know that.
Yeah.
So if the parents are following the regulative principles, that's already educating the child in the womb. Because the child in the womb is only eating prasadam or being nourished by mother's food, which is prasadam. So that's the best model where right from conception, the child comes in contact with Krishna consciousness through the food of the mother and through the substantive, what do you call life of food is prasadam. So the child's body is made by prasadam in the mother's womb because she's only eating prasadam, right? And the child is also hearing the kirtans and all these things are important because this way the child becomes educated already in the womb.
I see, Maharaj.
Yes.
So does it relate? I mean, is there any previous birth have implications on this?
Any what?
The
Previous
previous
birth.
birth of
On the consciousness of the child being born, is the previous birth implication. That's what it is.
Well, the quality of the child is going to be determined by the thoughts of the parents at the moment of conception when they try to have a child.
I see.
So both the husband and wife have followed the rules and regulations of Krishna consciousness for procreation, then there's a very good chance that Krishna gives you a saintly child. But if they just engage in, copulation just for pleasure, and the wife gets pregnant, that's going to be a problem. That problem can be, however, remunerated
Remediated.
by teaching the child to be Krishna conscious, even though the child is born in not the most ideal way. So everything can become purified by Krishna consciousness. But the best thing is not to make any mistakes. And so the conception of the child should be done in Krishna consciousness, as well as the rearing of the child should be done in Krishna consciousness. That makes life easiest, because if you conceive a child through Krishna consciousness, you're going to get it, and Krishna's going to put a devotee in the womb of the mother.
So I mean, here is how what I understood. Like, to summarize, so the material existence of a kid, or the offspring, starts from the consciousness of the parents.
Absolutely true. Yes.
Nothing
At the
related to
moment
the
of
previous.
conception, yes.
No, Maharaj, it is also related to the previous birth, like the soul which comes.
Yeah, it's in terms of what consciousness of the soul we attract depends on the consciousness of the parents,
Yeah.
right? But the individual soul itself is carrying their consciousness from previous.
I think that's what Prabhuji
No,
said.
but look, the whole thing happens by Krishna's
Arrangement.
arrangement.
That's right.
So if the parents are engaged in Krishna consciousness, and at the moment of conception, they're both Krishna conscious, Krishna will put a saintly child into the womb of the mother.
Correct.
If it all happens haphazardly, well, you can still train the child to be Krishna conscious, but why always begin from less than zero?
Yeah.
Why don't you start from the point of the child is already Krishna conscious in the womb?
Yeah, that's why we should train our next children, about how they
So,
should be ready.
Yeah, if the parents were not Krishna conscious, but after that, like, being consistently uh, docile towards Krishna, can gradually get free from the material world, and then enter into a spiritual realm. Is that all the summary of our conversation today?
I didn't quite understand what you just said.
So what I'm saying is that no matter what, like, what the material existence during the birth, right?
Okay,
So
wait a minute. Let's get one thing it's straight. You can become Krishna conscious at any time of your existence.
yeah, that's what I'm trying to summarize. And following the regulative principles consistently, we can end the material existence and enter into the spiritual realm or existence.
All right, but you should not assume that you can have a sinful life and at the last minute become Krishna conscious.
No, I'm not saying that. I'm saying that, I'm just through the process, like, whether my kids are, in the family, or anybody, like, yes.
Well, the whole process began by conceiving the child. If you and your wife were both.
Yeah, understood, Maharaj. I mean, not everybody is like, with that consciousness. I mean, right?
Okay,
So,
then
when
you can
discovering
correct. Yeah, go ahead.
So when discovering the truth through Krishna consciousness, like, what I heard was, like, we can alter the course, like, and we can start the process, and we can slowly, gradually end the material existence, and then liberate it into a spiritual realm.
Well, at any time, you can become Krishna conscious.
Yeah.
So if the conception of a child was done in passion and lust, it can be remediated through Krishna consciousness. But it's going to be harder.
Yeah,
That's all.
obviously, like
It's
as
going to
we
be
get
much,
older,
much
it is
harder.
harder. I mean, I myself experience that sometimes in some areas. So as we get older, my parents, same thing. Like I what I observed was like as you get older and older, it is hard to change.
Well, the other thing is putting your kids in public school is another, let's say, way of going backwards, not forwards, because they're going to come into contact with all other kids and teachers, and it's not the culture of Krishna consciousness. So they're going to be educated in two ways. One is academic education. The other is bad habits due to bad association. So everything depends on a good association. So not only do you have to conceive the child correctly, but you have to protect the child to be educated properly in their, especially their formative years, like let's say from 5 years old to 18 years old. So if you just put them in a public school, they're not going to be educated properly. They're going to, yeah, they'll get an education, but they're getting two educations. One is academic education, and the other is low class behavior education. So it's more important to give them the education of becoming a genuine devotee in their formative years between, let's say, 8 years old to 18 years old. So if they get a good Krishna conscious, not a bad Krishna conscious educated, but good Krishna conscious in their most formative years, that'll last throughout their whole life. Now, what's the difference between good education and bad education? Bad Krishna conscious education. You have to choose who the teachers are. You just can't give them to any devotee. They have to be proven to be a genuine devotee who is not, let's say, a phony devotee. So you always have to examine the qualifications of the teacher, whether it's in the material world or the spiritual world. In other words, you should never give your child to a person who's not genuinely spiritually inclined. So you have people that are in the mundane world who are spiritually inclined and they're teachers, and they understand what your values are, and they respect them, and they don't try and teach something to your kid that's going to violate your your values. But unfortunately nowadays, almost all the teachers in public schools are forced to teach all kinds of nonsense things. So then that eliminates them. So now how are you going to educate your child? Well, just forget about the fact that it seems that public education is free. You should spend the money to get a genuine devotee to educate your child. Now you have control on what they're learning, and now you have control on the curriculum. If you take a chance and put your child in the Karmi schools because it's free, it's not going to cost you any money. Yeah, you might gain the money but lose the child. So you have to be willing to sacrifice for the education of your child and not put them into the association of low class people. So all this is, it's better not to educate the child in school, and you teach the child what you know, right? Traditionally, that was what was happening. If the father was a shoemaker, he would teach the child to be a shoemaker, right, and earn an honest living. Not everybody has to be AI or IT. You know, what's wrong with being a honest shoemaker? You know, so you have to think about these things. You know, everything depends on association. So if you consciously put your child in a place where there's bad association, you're responsible for the outcome. But if you are very careful not to expose your children to bad association, now you're being a responsible parent. So I know it might be difficult, it might cost more money or whatever, but the end result would be much better. Your child would be a devotee and also well educated to be able to get a job. So you have to think about these things. You can't just assume that the teachers in public schools and the students in public schools are all angels. It's usually the opposite. Yeah. So are you going to submit your child to bad association? You have to think about it. You're going to be responsible if the child gets contaminated.
Haribo. This class, today's class is a phenomenal class. Luckily, we have the streamings with recorded. So we should definitely take bites of this and then maybe post.
Yeah.
So we'll do that.
Haribo.
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 Thank you very much, Maharaj. Hare Krishna.
No,